to Melon Balls.
What?
No. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. What up, punks? Welcome back to another episode of the Pop Culture Punks podcast. I'm your host, Phil, and across from me is your boy,
Josh.
Today, we will be discussing the movie with some trepidation.
Absolutely.
I had different expectations, but we will be discussing the movie Batman Ninja.
Yes.
Which is
wow,
an anime version of Batman,
yes,
if you could call it that.
Yes.
But before we get into that, let's talk about some things we actually enjoyed this week.
And then foreshadowing.
Then we'll get into it.
The foreshadowing. Yeah, buddy.
So what do you got?
All right, so I got three things. One, I found this band on accident, but they're called Saw, and they're kind of like a metalcore melodic synth metal band, but very good. The song I found was called Brother. They've got one like EP, I guess, where it's not like a full like maybe 12 track, but it's maybe like 6 or 7, so okay, it's smaller. But the song I heard was Brother, and it was jamming. It's very good. I don't even know how to classify them. Like, they almost have a hint of like Demon Hunter with like Kill Switch with a little bit more like, I don't know. They're good, but they've got almost like their album art is very cyberpunky looking, and it's got a lot of tech vibe. So they have a little bit of a synth sound, but it's not overpowering. It's just very subtle in the background, and there's a little bit of techno in it.
Cool.
And I don't even want to call it techno. It's more just electronic instruments to kind of fill it out. But it's good. I really dig them. So highly recommend Saul. I think they only have those two. So they have the most recent EP, which I think was from last year. And then they've got another album before that that I haven't listened to yet because I was hooked on the other one. So
cool.
I don't know I can't remember the name of it. I could look it up, but we want to get going because this is going to be an interesting one. Two, and the next two are more game news, but two, Joker is officially out on Smash for all you Smash Brothers fans.
And that's not the Batman Joker.
That's not the Batman Joker.
The Persona 5 Joker.
Which, after watching this movie, I think the Batman Joker would have been a pretty good pick. But that is neither here nor there.
Yep.
So Joker's out on Smash officially. I'm probably going to pick up the season pass.
Is that something you have to pay for?
Yeah.
Oh, it's DLC. Like a DLC fighter?
But so the thing you can do is you either get you can get like the season pass that comes with all fighters for like $25.
Okay.
Or you can get the individual ones for like $6, I think. It's like $5.99. So I'm just gonna do the season because the fact that Joker from Persona 5 is in it tells me that the next 5 are going to be incredible picks.
Yeah, I saw that they added like new stages with him too, and they also added a stage builder. Like you can craft your own stages, which they had to delete a ton already.
Oh my gosh. I wasn't surprised at all, but it was just like, why would you ever put that in the hands of
This is the reason Nintendo's so
right. This
so
is
clamped down on their online
Exactly.
features.
It was like, well, why does Nintendo freak out so much? I'm like, because this is a child's console and there's all these people making like Wang jokes in their backgrounds. It's like, oh my lord. I think one of the first ones was like Mario whizzing in the background. Yeah. It's just like, why?
It's like the Calvin thing that people have in their trucks.
Of your singular life that you have, why did you choose to make a Smash Brothers stage of Mario taking a piss in the background?
Hey man, you gotta find the joy. You gotta find the joy in the little things.
Oh my gosh. There's so we're not even gonna. It was just like, really, people?
Oh,
anyway.
I'm interested to see what the other fighters end up being. Yeah. If that's the first one that they come up with.
Right, exactly. So, and I know I've mentioned this like 5 or 6 times by now, but Microsoft has said they would absolutely entertain having or partnering with Nintendo to get Banjo and Kazooie in it. So if they do that, I'm gonna lose my mind.
That'd be dope.
Yeah. So let's check that out. Like I said, I think the singular fighters are only like $6 and you get a stage. I am super stoked because I don't know if you saw the details on it, but the stage actually changes based on the music you set. So they've got the tunes from Persona 4 as well.
Oh, really?
And so like the whole stage turns yellow in that theme, and then they also have music from Persona 3 and it turns blue.
Oh, wow.
And then this Persona 5 I think is red and then you can select the track frequency or like how often it's played.
That's cool.
And then the whole stage kind of changes based on which game.
Dang.
So I think it's like the main fighting music from 4, which I heard it and I was like, man, if I had all the time in the world, I would go back and play that because
I know,
such a good game.
60 hours in that game.
Yeah,
and I didn't even get the good ending.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so check that out. And then this is my shout out indie game. I have been playing it for the past 2 hours, I think. It's called Katana Zero. I saw it in Nintendo's last Direct where they were doing a whole bunch of indies that they were showcasing. It's freaking cool.
What is it?
It's like a side-scrolling samurai. I almost can't describe it. You just have to look it up. The mechanics function very similarly to like Hotline Miami, where you have like a singular stage. There's different levels, and the goal is to clear out the level. And there's kind of some like challenges and puzzles you have to do. It's very like quick twitch in some ways. Not so much as Hotline Miami. Like Hotline Miami could be just brutal and how fast you had to be, and you had to kind of map out. You know, when you go and you're like, all right, grab the machine gun, go here, shotgun, throw the bat. You know, and you're like, boom, 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 boom. But this is cool, and it's a very interesting storytelling. Like I can tell that it's designed to be played multiple times. Just in there's different dialogue options and different things you can do in missions where they tell you do or don't do something, and there's a very clear distinction that you can choose to do or not do it. So right now I'm just kind of playing it by ear and seeing what happens, but I might do another playthrough and just kind of see where it goes. So highly recommend it. It's only like $15, and it's it just launched I think like Thursday this past week. So very cool. It's like a samurai. It's got some like neon kind of cyberpunky vibes, but it's not like in a cyberpunk city. But there's all these references to say that it's not actually our world, because it never said it wasn't, or that it was. But then they started referencing these other places at the point where I was like, huh. There's some interesting things. There's some weird things going on here. So I wouldn't be surprised if it has kind of like a Matrix Bioshock-y ending based on
like a twist kind of ending.
Yeah, and I'm fully expecting it just based on the things that are happening and how the game is playing out. But it's really cool. It's highly recommend. So Katana Zero, and it's only on PC and Switch. Okay, so that's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Video game wise, I'm trying to remember if I played anything. The only thing I played this week was Killing Floor with Busco.
Yeah, with the bus,
which is pretty fun, and they also added.
Yeah, I saw the cyberpunk.
They added it's like a DLC. Cyberpunk theme. Like even in like the zombie battling, like robots will come out sometimes.
Oh,
and they have like this electric beam that like stuns you, and it's super annoying, but it adds like a cool layer.
Sure.
And they also added like microtransactions, which is kind of dumb, but also because I played it a ton before, I got like 50 loot crates when I logged in.
Nice.
It took forever to like give them to me, but you can get like goofy like hats and stuff. Like Bosco had like a golden bunny hat with like these money glasses and stuff, so it kind of adds another like goofy fun factor to it. So
awesome.
That game's a lot of fun. I would recommend it to most people because it's just a fun zombie horde game. So we'll have to play it again with hopefully you can get in on it too.
Yeah, I gotta get that installed.
And so that was fun getting to catch up with him and get back into it. So it's been a long time since I played that.
Dude, I can't wait to hop back in. I always played Father something or whatever.
Yeah, the Scottish Father dude. I'm always
revolvers. Oh, dude,
what's his name?
Killer.
Oisin something, or he's
the biker dude who literally looks like you. Yeah, he's got like a giant beard,
big giant beard.
And I think one of the costumes had like a demon hunter.
He's got a demon hunter shirt that I like wearing. So
it's incredible.
Yeah. Definitely. So that was fun. I started watching Cowboy Bebop on a whim, which has been good so far. Plus there's a corgi in it, so that's a plus. Yeah. So that's been good. I'd recommend it. I think I've seen only 3 episodes so far, so I'm still kind of figuring out what's actually going on, or like what the point of the show is.
Right. It's very unconventional in a lot of ways. I'm actually pretty close to the end of it. I haven't finished it yet, but I think I've like 3 or 4 episodes left, and towards the end it got kind of wild in like a weird way, but I don't know if there's like a payoff for that wildness. So but yeah, I really liked it when I was watching it, just for it's got like a short story element almost more, but it's directly tied to each character. Like it's not necessarily sequential in that, you know, if technically you watch some out of order, you wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like each episode is its own like story, and it's like he's kind of like a space detective sort of, or like bounty hunter detective combo sort of. So it's been interesting so far. And then I've been mostly reading a ton of comics, but the one that I've enjoyed so far the most surprisingly actually, was Scott Pilgrim.
Nice.
I started reading that comic, and it's actually pretty charming. I was surprised, and they just like come out of nowhere with like weird supernatural elements. Like all of a sudden, the end of the comic, I was just like, "What the heck is going on?" Like,
you've seen the movie, right?
No, I haven't.
What?
Actually, I might have at some point. It's got Michael Cera or whatever. Michael Cera,
yeah. It's good. That was Chris Evans was in that too.
Yeah,
he played the
so
first
Larson.
boyfriend. Oh, that's right. She's the crazy
girl.
vegan chick, isn't she? Yeah, that's a good flick.
But the comic is good. It's got like an indie comic mixed with like a manga vibe to it. So
definitely,
it's interesting.
Sweet.
So
awesome.
Yeah, it's good.
Any other news? I can't think of anything recently that happened this week. There hasn't been any big blow-ups. I'm taking a hardcore Twitter fast this entire week because I don't want to see a single thing about Endgame or Avengers or.
Dude, I know. Evan and I just rewatched that on Friday,
Infinity
and
War?
It was just as good as it was the first time I saw it.
Yep.
Like, oh, gosh.
Nice.
And Evan appreciated it a lot more now that she's seen all of the movies.
Yep.
So we're both just jazzed for Friday.
Geeked.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah. Apparently somebody spoiled the ending already, but
right.
Every creator on Twitter is like, if you say anything, like I will block you and ban you from everything ever again.
Right.
So
I'm just not even. Yeah. I literally might not even go on Google unless I have to, or YouTube, just to like.
I'm gonna have to avoid Reddit and Twitter because people are d-bags on there.
Right. I don't want to give. I know that there's probably gonna be people who are gonna get them taken care of before I. That makes it sound like they're like
take them out.
Take them out. But I'm sure there's people that are gonna regulate that and be kind of policing in a way. It's at least the users, I would anticipate, like block this person or get this shut down. But I'm just not even gonna play that game because
like, why even take
10 years I can do without the internet for like 5 days. Yeah. Like, I'll be fine.
I'm so excited though.
Yep.
Oh, gosh.
Absolutely. So.
Oh man, I don't even know.
Yeah.
The podcast is gonna be crazy,
dude.
Next week.
It's gonna be bananas. It's gonna be absolutely
a sharp turn from this one.
Yeah. Which. This one may be really, really short.
Yeah,
we've said that in the past, but
it's never short.
I think this one actually might be just because.
I'm curious to start off.
Yeah.
What did you think this movie was going to be?
All right.
Just like on a base level, without getting into like what you want it to be after watching it. Like going into it, what did you think this was going to be?
Right. So first off, just as a reminder, we're talking about Batman Ninja, which came out I think like last year or the year before.
It was 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, it was like 1 or 2 years. It's pretty recent, and I saw trailers for it and stuff, and the Batman in samurai armor and having a duel with Joker, and immediately I was like, this is gonna be cool. I really like the idea of putting Batman, who is a very American character and just surrounded by like dystopian American city vibes, and actually putting him in a completely different element with an art style in Japan feudal setting that could be really sweet to kind of see play out. And so for me, I was like, this is a sweet concept, and I think if they capitalize on it, this could be really awesome. I don't know what the frick this was.
Yeah.
It was not that. And it felt like everything I saw leading up to it was trying to build it up as it's this art piece kind of putting Batman.
Yeah, I had the same expectation
space.
Because there's a comic called Gotham by Gaslight, I think, where it's basically like, what if Batman existed during like the Victorian era, during the Industrial Revolution?
Sure.
And it's kind of... You get to see a picture of like how he would also use his resourcefulness and stuff in a different era where like he doesn't have access to the same technology and stuff.
Right.
And in my mind, I was like, oh, this is going to be the same thing. Like Batman gets transported to feudal Japan. He doesn't have any of his toys. Like he has nothing.
Right.
He's all by himself. It's just him and the Joker, and in feudal Japan. Like that's kind of what I got from it. I don't think they showed any of the other stuff in the trailers.
Not at all.
And so they were kind of building it up as like this thing.
Right.
And then immediately when the movie started, I was like, this is like, not going to be... Yeah, I was like, this is good. As soon as like the first 5 minutes were done, I was like, this is going to be bad.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Let's sit in the positive vibes first, and I think it's tough because I don't want to just shred it just to shred it. I think there are a lot of things wrong with it, and I think part of it was... I was expecting something that was not even laughably close, and that's on me. but then
I think this is the first time we've went into something where like we thought this was going to be like a Posy Vibes episode. Like,
we were like, oh yeah,
let's throw Batman Ninja in there. It'll be a fun thing to just fill in the superhero stuff.
Right.
We need to watch it, and now it's like a hard left turn.
It was just like,
oh man, what are we supposed to do now?
Yeah, we literally. I think because I was skimming through your notes while I was watching it, and I was like, what are we gonna talk about?
Yeah,
because I don't want to, especially if people haven't seen it, which is probably going to be the majority. I just was like, yeah, so not a lot to do here.
I think my biggest gripe, going back to my thoughts going into it, was that they didn't actually fulfill on anything. Like this, basically, like this movie didn't need to exist because Batman never actually needed to rely on anything having to do with feudal Japan.
Yeah,
because he gets transported. Yeah. He gets transported to feudal Japan.
Yep.
He still has the bat suit with all of his technology. Somehow his like HUD still works and all that stuff.
Right.
And then he finds out he still has the Batmobile. Oh, Alfred's here as well. He can
exactly.
He's like,
oh, Alfred, you made my black tea. And apparently he's been like fermenting it or doing some weird thing like that.
And you get to the end and he finally puts the samurai armor on. But even then it's like, why?
Yeah.
He had the bat suit. What does he need dumb samurai armor for?
Right.
He's got the bat suit.
Right.
And it's just, like, there was just nothing about it that needed to be feudal Japan. Like, they didn't have him rely on anything. Like, and then they had like freaking giant mechs and stuff. And I'm like, none of this technology would have existed. Even for like, you give them 2 years to do it. It's still not possible in feudal Japan, I don't think.
Yeah.
And it was like, if you want to make an anime, if you wanted to make an anime Batman,
right?
Why did it have to be in feudal Japan?
Right.
Like, it could have just been like, just
make
Batman,
it like a cyberpunk,
like what if
Gundam style Batman then,
or like even if like it's Batman except what happened to Batman happened to him in Japan rather than America.
Right.
Like he's basically the same character, but he has to do it in Japan. And I mean that's a whole different movie, but it's kind of what they suggested this would be in some sense, or at least like the turn they took with this movie was like you started as one thing. And you became another thing that should have been probably this thing, and it was
yeah.
So
here's kind of the roller coaster of emotions I had, which I read the box art before I popped it in just to kind of get my bearings right of like, all right, what am I walking into here? And it clearly states that this is Batman from the present time going back in time.
Yeah, and I knew that.
I was like, red flag. Yep. I did not remember that fact, but immediately I was like, red flag, mainly because whenever I feel like they have to constrain a modern superhero that is known, or really I think, and even for some of the other superheroes, that's their backstory. You think of like Steve Rogers and Captain America being Captain America. It's his whole thing is, oh, I'm from the past, now I'm in the future. Oh,
man out of time sort of
right,
thing.
Exactly.
But
and now
reverse.
You're taking the man in time and you're putting him back in time. And you're doing it, to your point, without any consequence to like having to figure out what to do. And I think this is the biggest flaw to me, is that there was I think this movie, exactly like you said, would have been way cooler if it actually was, you go back and Joker is this like Oni spirit type guy, like emperor, like crazed, maybe even supernatural emperor or something, and Batman is forced to be in the past. And he like knows that that's Joker, and Joker knows that it's him. But like Joker doesn't have crazy Voltron Gundam tech, Gorilla Grodd or whatever, Gorilla George. Like he doesn't have any Gundam tech. Nobody has giant robots in feudal Japan. It's just a good old fashioned samurai brouhaha, and that's not what it was at all. And it was such a missed opportunity from that respect.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
And I think on top of that, the fact that they literally included the entire Bat family, other than Batwoman for some reason, and then all of the villains,
right?
Other than like maybe like Mr. Freeze or something,
yeah.
And none of the villains did anything.
Well,
other than
obviously, because Mr. Freeze wouldn't actually make sense in feudal Japan.
Yeah,
with all his
it wouldn't make sense.
That wouldn't make sense.
Yeah. But like none of the villains did anything,
right?
Other than serve as like drivers of these mechs that turned.
And
into
they just
Voltron.
hung out until the end, and then it turned out that there was this giant plot to get them all to come back and literally pull a Voltron and all like shapeshift into this other giant house mech, and it was just a giant.
And everything everything was a twist and turn because like you get so like the story like had 5 twists.
Right.
To it. It was like, oh, you get there and you expect Grodd to be the one. Oh no, it's Joker. Joker got Grodd bound up.
Right.
So then Grodd works with Batman, and then Grodd turns on Batman, and then they defeat Joker, and now the Joker is normal again. Which that animation switch
weird.
Made no sense.
That was weird. I didn't understand.
Freaked me
why.
out. And then
it was freaky.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden Grodd's back, and then like 10 seconds later, Joker overthrows Grodd again, and Joker's back, and now Joker's got all the bad guys, and he formed this giant freaking like Power Rangers Voltron robot out of like these little Japanese houses, and I'm like, what is happening?
Okay, but let's not forget when the good guys take the million of monkeys from and the bats from the Bat Ninja dudes, and they all combine into a 1960s.
Okay, that was so stupid.
They all combine into not like a cool like silhouette shadow Batman, which makes more sense.
It was actually Batman.
Straight up Adam West costume Batman is exactly what he looked like. Like he had like the whole spandex thing going on. It wasn't like a full suit. It was like spandex 1960s Adam West Batman, and he gets into this like classic trope anime moment of like punching Joker's robot, and then they like boom,
and then it shows the two faces like screaming, and like, then they're like with like the action lines, and I'm like
boom, or into the fists are like and then the one he's like, oh, but I'm stronger, and he like punches through
and
his
somehow
fist.
They're controlling it.
What is
with, like,
happening?
Yeah,
it was just like, this is banana. Like I was laughing so hard when all the monkeys were climbing up the robot, and then he's like stomping, and you just hear like just like flying off.
Oh.
What was this movie?
I know, it's like the monkeys get on and they form like samurai armor or something.
Yes.
On him, and it turns into like this weird samurai mech, and then it lights like he like blows fire on him, and they're like lit up. He's like lighting these monkeys on fire, and they're like dying, and then the bats come in, and then
out of nowhere,
like it's not like it doesn't make any sense because like somehow they actually turn it into like Batman,
giant Batman.
It's not like you can still see the bats. It's like somehow the bats like
turn into Batman,
and it's like this giant mech Batman that looks like you said, the Adam West Batman.
Oh my gosh, I wasn't sure. Like, I was waiting. I was like, this is incredible. Like, this is the most. I texted you this. This movie wasn't over the top because I feel like the one thing you could say and you could argue is for a lot of anime, I think of like One Punch Man. Like One Punch Man is one of the most over the top anime I've ever watched. But it's for a purpose.
It usually has a point.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, it's the purpose of the story. It's, it's how all the characters are. It's like the world that they're in. It's all
and
this,
usually
like,
it's just because it's like shonen, which tends to be a little bit more over
the
and
top,
it's like over the catering
top.
to like adolescent or like teenage kids who love that just nonsense action.
Right. Which arguably this movie I would say is, but it's rated PG-13, I think, or something. So it's definitely not for like, 10-year-olds. Yeah. And not that like, a PG-13 movie isn't going to appeal to them, but just like the over-the-top nature was obnoxious. It wasn't even over the top of like, oh my gosh, that was so crazy, but it was awesome. It was just obnoxious. Like,
yeah, and I feel like the personalities didn't quite jive.
Yeah.
Like Batman's personality felt a little bit off.
Yep.
The Joker was just so annoying. Like,
oh my gosh.
Like I was the whole time I'm like, this is not the Joker. Like, what is going on? This dude is nuts. Joker's not this insane. Well, or at least he doesn't show that he's this insane. Like,
right. It was like he was hopped up on cocaine.
Yeah,
like that was it.
Joker was
like,
on cocaine, and
it wasn't like crazy. Oh, I've got wacky ideas, Joker, or like unstable Joker. It was like I've been snorting white powder for the past like 2 years, waiting for you to show up, and I am just wired, dude.
And I'm curious what the original voices were in this one, because in English the voices did not match.
I think it was supposed to be Japanese because when I watched it in Japanese, the Japanese audio was like spot on. So I'm assuming
because in English it was like the Joker's mouth was just flapping and like, I was so mad. It was like the Rendell thing all over again. I was like, oh,
you're like, what is this?
Gosh.
Yeah. All right. So positive vibes. One, I think the art style, honestly, like the cell shaded kind of 3D was actually really cool. Like some of the fighting scenes that they did, I actually kind of liked. I think.
It was hit or miss for me.
I think that's the hard part, is there were some times that they did it and they used it. It was just, again, obnoxious and wild and weird, and it felt like strangely unnecessary. Because there were scenes where I was like, this is kind of like a cool Borderlands vibe, and I dig it a lot. But then there were other scenes where I was like, this is not cool.
I think it suffered because I'm pretty sure the animator for this was like the JoJo Bizarre Adventure or something.
Oh, interesting.
So, I mean, I think he's supposed to be a good animator. I think what made it bad for me in certain parts was because of the way things were designed.
Sure.
A lot of the designs were just like, why? Why does Nightwing look like he looks, and why does Red Hood have a freaking
giant?
What even is that? And
that was such an anime.
Damien's Robin, his haircut. Like, what is going on? Like, why do they all have these? Like, just because they're in feudal Japan, they all of a sudden get all these like Japanese looking haircuts and like.
Yeah, I pulled up Comics Verse. Yeah, dude, Robin looked like such a dweeb, and then his little monkey pal, and just it was all over the place. I looked up on Comics Verse, and I was just kind of scrolling through because I was trying to find the studio, and like the first quote I saw was someone was saying that the director, Mr. Mizusaki, he loves crazy ideas. So I think it was actually the less crazy, the very blasé stuff that got tossed out, and all the crazy stuff actually ended up in the film, which that makes sense because it was bananas. And
yeah, I feel like this movie just proved that Batman does not work.
No.
In whatever anime is,
and
they should stay in their own lanes, in my opinion.
Yeah,
unless you're gonna like do. I think to make it work, you'd have to actually like have a good understanding of how Batman relates to his villains, in a sense.
Dude, Batman Ninja has an 80% critic score.
I know.
On Rotten Tomatoes. What? How the frick?
But the user score is
like
terrible.
40. Yeah.
But Batman fans and anime fans
don't.
I feel like they don't jive. Yeah.
No, I agree.
Because if you look at all the comments, like you're like, these are clearly like the dude types who are like animes for wimps. Kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't hate it because it was anime. I don't hate it because of the Japanese stuff. I hate it because like Batman's not supposed to be that over the top, to be honest. And I think that's why it doesn't work. Because I think for it to work, you would need it to be a more like period piece, like we said at the beginning. Like it would need to be, how does Batman struggle to survive in a different time period against his enemies who have had 2 more years than him to prepare.
Sure.
And it a lot of it basically just feels like that quote says, like they just thought of the most insane things that you could do that made no sense and just did them.
Yeah.
Like, what if we had houses that turned into mechs? Because that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. So I think the studio that did it is, so it's Kamikaze Duga, and they've done JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I'm not seeing any other standout things that I recognize, but yeah, so JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is probably the other big one. So prominent studio, and I'm sure, and like talented. Like again, there were some great scenes. I think to your point, and this would be the thing I would say about this movie is, I think you're right that Batman doesn't fit in this style, in the over the top style, but I think you could work with that, and I think you could work with making almost like a commentary through the like anime, which tends to be very over the top and wild and crazy, and then putting Batman, who's a character that he in his personality is like the least wild and crazy person ever.
Yeah, like Batman would not be the guy who's swinging his fists that intensely with a mech. Like I don't think Batman would do that.
Right. And so, because again, if you threw like Deadpool in like an anime, he would fit in perfectly because he's crazy, he's over the top, he's obnoxious, and everybody would be like, that's Deadpool, like it's still him. But I think because of this, they didn't build the story and the other characters and the setting and the scene around him. And I feel like they either needed to pick, I feel like, and this is just, if I had to rewrite it or redo it, and this is speaking very piously, like I don't actually think like I would know what I'm doing, but from what happened that just didn't sit well from the whole movie, I think they either needed to lean into the crazy and do the crazy like mech thing, but almost have it be tongue in cheek, where Batman's just like, what the frick is this? Like, where he's even like
he is almost
serious?
Like fourth wall without doing fourth wall. Like he'd be like, what is happening?
Where he's just like, what am I supposed to do with this? Yeah. Where it's like him kind of reacting, and then all the other characters doing their own thing. Because, like, in the end, Batman really didn't do anything. Like, he like, beat the Joker. But there's, like, that weird scene where he got, like, stabbed. And, like, I don't even know how the blade was flying in the air. Like, he, like, punched Joker's sword after, like, grabbing it, which was, like, cool. But then, apparently...
he snaps a blade
right, but apparently
the
house... However it happens, the blade goes flying in the air, and then it falls and hits him in the chest, and he falls off the building and dies.
Scene made no
but then
sense.
it actually isn't Batman, and then Batman's like, "I've got you, Joker," and then he like takes him out, and that's
turns
the end
into
of it.
bats. Well, then it's a whole sequence where he like somehow phases into bats,
right?
And he keeps like coming behind Joker and like I'm like, this is
and...
cool, but it doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Like Batman's not this fast.
Exactly, and so. And that, I think, again, with that tongue, if they would have gone in one direction, which is one of the two I'm going to dive into, I think if they would have gone that direction, that whole sequence could have been really funny and kind of almost tongue-in-cheek, but also super dope if Joker's like, since when can you do that? And he's like, I just embraced it. Like, almost being like the whole movie, he, like, doesn't want to lean into this, like, just psychotic nonsense that's going on with, like, giant robots. And he's like, what do you mean you got giant robots in 2 years? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And obviously, like, you'd want to iron that out so it's not corny of him just acknowledging, like, there's crazy things that don't happen in my world that are happening here. But I think they should have either gone that way, leaned into Batman being stoic and whatever. Because in a way, I feel like that's also, in the irony, the opposite of, like, what feudal Japan is associated with. Like, feudal Japan isn't associated with, emperors like the Joker going crazy and being like, like, look at me, here I go, and I think if, again, that would have been really interesting if they would have gone the other direction, and this is the direction I was hoping they would have gone, it is more of a period piece where Joker is reserved and he's kind of crazy and he's unstable, but he's like serious and he's this emperor that people are afraid of and all this stuff, and so the characters are more themselves, and so I feel like they either needed to let the rest of the world be nuts and then Batman be himself and just completely the entire time be like, I am not about this. And not the world, but everyone being exactly who they're not. Or they needed to build the whole world around Batman and make it serious and like more one to the next thing and not as just crazy. And I feel like they didn't do either. They like combined both of those things, and I think tonally it just felt very strange. And that, to me, that's the biggest reason why I didn't like it, is because I feel like there were moments where they literally twice did the exact same shot of Batman like staring longingly at his fist as he thinks about what he's gonna do to Joker, and then he clenches it because he knows what he has to do. And they did that twice. They did that twice over this movie, and I'm like,
too.
Oh, dudes, like, you can't do that. Like, even though I don't watch anime consistently, I'm like, that is the most stereotypical shot to do. And then again,
some of the lines were so corny that Batman would say. It's like, Batman doesn't talk.
It's like Batman. Batman doesn't do this.
If he says anything, he doesn't say anything at all. Like,
and I will acknowledge too, like, to not be too critical in terms of the interpretation, because this is a Japanese writer. So the screenplay was written by Kazuki Nakashima. And so you have someone taking, I'm sure, like, if they gave, like, One Piece or Naruto to, I mean, for crying out loud, look what we did to Death Note. Like, we're not speaking from, like, oh, we know our stuff, and, like, it's more like, it's just interesting how, like, when we were ripping apart Death Note, like, we looked at, whoever the producers were for Netflix that were working on it, took it and just butchered it. And so it's interesting to me almost that, in a similar sense, they took what they knew, which is like more just out there wild animation and like storytelling, and they did it with Batman, where it almost was like, this doesn't make sense. And then in the flip, it was like, Light wouldn't do this and all this stuff.
It lost the nuance, I think, that Batman needs to have.
Sure.
And I think even just like thematically or like aesthetically, like, it was such a bright movie.
Yeah.
Like,
it was
just
very
sun
strange.
and sunshine all day long. Like, I feel like any Batman movie you watch, like the TV show or whatever, like, it's always like dark and gothic and like nighttime or stormy, kind of like moody. And this was just like bombastic and bright, and everything was like flashy and shiny, and it's just weird.
Right.
And that is an interesting comparison with kind of going the other way from like Japanese artists trying to interpret like American material in a sense. Because it does, at a lot of moments, it does feel like if this wasn't Batman, and it was a different character that was like
fine.
A Japanese character,
yeah,
it would just be pretty much probably like a lot of anime.
Right,
like,
exactly.
But I think because they, instead of making like Joker the main bad guy and then he has like his peons, maybe like emperors from Japan that he had brainwashed and they have the smile on their face and like, or just like a mask or something. And those are the people he's kind of controlling to control the mechs versus like, no, they just took all of the bad guys.
Every single villain
stripped them from all of their nuance and like whatever they have in the shows and kind of just put them there as like an aesthetic piece that had no character at all in a sense. Yeah. And it was kind of just like, this didn't need to exist.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm surprised it has an 80. I
genuinely am too. I don't understand it. And again, it could be that people just got really excited and they like overpraised it because it's like, oh, look at this like cool, unique Japanese interpretation of Batman.
Most of the comments looked like it was like, oh, it's unique and it's stylistic.
Like, wow, we've never seen Batman like this because it's bad. Like, it's not good. But again, this isn't to criticize another person and their interpretation because they're entitled to it. And I think this was a question I had was, do you think that because the elements that were presented weren't the ones that we usually associate with Batman, that immediately, almost no matter what, we were in kind of like a losing situation watching this movie in terms of liking it or not liking it? Because part of me is kind of like, that's an interesting question to ask, where we have been exposed to Batman for so many movies and shows and comics and all this stuff, and to a small level, he's always presented the same. And there's things that change and there's stories that change. But like you said, I've never seen a Batman show where the majority of it is like in a field with like sunshine and like,
other than maybe like the 66 one.
Right.
Like the Adam West
Batman.
Yeah,
and I think that is like, and it's interesting that that's the Adam West, like the Batman that they most closely replicated with that giant monkey Batman. I even say that sounds ridiculous. But anyway, so I'm curious like what you think of that question, that because he's a character we're so familiar with, that having a studio that is going to do their own thing that could and did completely diverge from the elements artistically, narratively, stylistically, in terms of character, like was it even possible to a certain extent that we would enjoy it? Because I feel like that's kind of how I'm seeing it. As you said that, it was like, man, maybe there were things that could have been better. I think objectively they needed to either pick the crazy anime route or the more subdued, like somber storytelling route. Yeah. They kind of did both. And I think because of that, we didn't get the like, oh, gritty feudal Japan Batman, which I think palatably would have been more easy to digest for us, and we probably would have enjoyed more. Or I feel like they needed to lean into our anime fandom side and just be like crazy, like Batman right punches into people's faces and him like punching them into the dirt and like just like crazy nonsense like that, but then address why it's presented that way.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I think you're right to some extent, because going into the movie we have an understanding of who Batman is. Right. And because of that, we're looking at it through a certain lens. Mm-hmm. And trying to look at it through like the anime lens, like even then
I didn't like it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm like an anime aficionado. I've only seen like 4 or 5 shows all the way through. So like, but I appreciate the medium for what it is. But like, I feel like the movie didn't do justice to either side. Like, yeah, it almost needed to be a TV show or something, because there's just too much stuff. And like, there wasn't time to establish Batman's character. So in that sense, like, the movie is almost relying on us having a knowledge of who Batman was already, but then making it almost a different Batman than the one we know. Mm-hmm. Because like there wasn't a lot of establishing time, right? Because he just gets there, finds out it's late, gets attacked, finds that the Batmobile's there, drives straight up to the castle, right, and finds out it's the Joker, and for some reason it needed to originally be Gorilla Grodd who was doing it, and then it's just this weird back and forth, and like I think it's just tonally all over the place is what really threw me off, not necessarily like, because I'm not opposed to Batman reinterpretations, because Batman White Knight paints Batman as the villain.
Yeah,
basically,
and it's a fantastic story.
Yeah. And I think, but even then, that Batman is the same Batman that we've always known.
Right.
It's just they twisted the society in a way that made the Batman that we've always known. They kind of made us question, like, is what he's doing, like, actually heroic in a sense? And, like,
definitely.
What if there's other ways? And they kind of played with that. And this one, it was kind of just like, he was kind of the same, but he was kind of different. And it kind of just, like, whatever the story needed, that's... Like, whenever the story needed it, he found a new piece of technology and just, like,
used it.
Or, like, found out there's 4 or 5 other people there who can help him fight the good fight. And it was kind of just like, there's just too many people here. There's too many bad guys. There's too many good guys. There's, like, I don't know who any of these characters really are, because I only know, like, 1 or 2 of the Robins from the comics. I don't know a lot of them. And it's just, like, there was just, like, way too much stuff going on. And I think... To be honest, I think that's what they wanted it to be. Like, they were basically like, let's just take everything Batman and make a dope anime film out of it.
Yeah.
And they kind of did that, but they kind of missed the mark in my mind. But
yeah, I agree. The other thing, too, is I feel like we need to address the fact that there's this, like, prophecy that's alluded to that, like, I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, what the heck was that?
That was really confusing. And again, that was one of those things where, dudes, if that's the opening sequence, is that, like... back in feudal times, like, there was predicted this Batman, because I feel like that would have even been even more interesting, is if the whole movie starts with there's this there's this ancient prophecy in feudal Japan that one day there's going to be this bat who's going to, like, come and rescue us from this devil, and it's like an image of the Joker or whatever, and to kind of almost use some of that language that might be associated with like direct religious imagery from feudal Japan, to be like, there's this Oni that's going to curse the land and, like, take over and do all this crazy stuff and wreak havoc and do all this destruction. And then we get to see all that unfold, and we get to see, like, oh, that's kind of interesting, because now there's a payoff of, like, oh, Gorilla Grodd did send them all back in time, and here comes Batman, and, like, because of that, these things all play out. But I feel like it was a story that had, like, anime tropes that they had to fit in, because that's what they told the producers, and then there were narrative things that they needed to just kind of explain, because otherwise they were just going to be there.
Yep.
Because there's, like, this whole, like, League of the Bat, or, like, I don't even know what the heck they were called, like the
they were,
Bat
like,
Ninja.
kind of samurai ninja.
Yeah, there's, like, these, like,
something.
Bat Ninja dudes who are already there, and they're like, oh, like, there was this prophecy that you would come, and so we serve
did they know
you.
about Batman because of, like, the Robins, or did they know about Batman because of some prophecy?
I don't know.
And then even at the end, they, like, send him off, and, like, they, like, worship him or something, and I'm like, you don't even know who this is. He just got here.
Yeah, it's like, it's some American dude, and at this point, you don't even know what
and I
is.
think, like, that stuff at the beginning hinted at a story. I would almost argue that this movie didn't really have a story.
No,
like,
I
the movie was
agree.
an aesthetic piece. Like, the story was Batman teams up with all of the good guys and fights against the bad guys. Like, that kind of was what the story was. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of, like, I mean, you could probably look at a lot of the comics and say, like, okay, that's the same exact thing, really, that a lot of them are doing. And you're right, but I think this one had none of the nuance. Like, in comics, a lot of the nuance doesn't come from, like, the story itself. It comes from, like, the characters and the visual way you work with things and stuff. And this one, because it packed so much, like, craziness into it, the story just kind of got stamped out, and it was just like, halfway through the movie, I'm like, what is actually happening in this movie? Like, there's just twists and turns everywhere, and, like, it almost felt like Batman didn't even actually do anything in the movie. Like, he was kind of just getting tossed from wave to wave, and, like, he just ended up getting lucky that somehow the bats knew that they needed to form a giant Batman to beat Joker.
Right.
And then the only really, like, dope part was the fight scene at the end, but still, somehow he figured out how to vanish like a ninja. And, like... Yeah, it was kind of just like whatever they needed in the moment to be, like, dope, basically, or, like, cool anime stuff.
Right,
they just like
threw
did
it
it.
in
Like,
there.
there was no, like,
purpose.
He didn't have to learn how to be a ninja in this.
Right.
So,
and I think to kind of build on that too, I think that's one of the things that could have made this movie really cool, is if they would have made it that, because I mean, part of Batman's story, at least in some of the runs, is he trains with Ra's al Ghul, and so there is kind of this,
which is the League of Assassins, and they've existed for longer than feudal Japan.
Right. So part of me is like, why didn't you just do that? Like, why didn't you just have it be that he runs into like one of the great however many greats to get there Al Ghuls, and they're like, well, let's train you. It's like, interesting. How did you know that technique? And he's like, well, I trained under like an Al Ghul. And then it's kind of like, oh, so like you're one of us. Like, well, we don't really like this Joker a-hole. Like, we'll help you.
Yeah, and I think that would have been kind of a cool way of doing it. And
yeah.
The story would have been the same. Like, the goal of the story is to drive
Beat
Batman
the bad guy
toward defeating the bad guy.
Right.
Which is like almost every story.
Right.
But I think that would have added another layer to it.
Right. And
even if it wasn't like Ra's al Ghul, even if it was like he teams up with this league of like weird bat religion people, and they actually like go into that more and kind of give us some backstory to like why these people think there's going to be some bat god that rises up and does stuff, like, and they added a little more nuance there, and that was kind of how he formed this coalition. But it was just kind of like conveniently Red Hood, Red Robin, Robin,
exactly.
and Nightwing were all there,
right?
And Catwoman was kind of good and kind of bad, and
just being Catwoman,
yeah,
and all that, yeah. And that to me is, I think, the biggest. Gosh, I just wish this was a different movie, and I said that for other stuff we've had to watch.
Yeah,
but this is one of those where it's like you could have even still done the anime tropes of like the hero rises story, like, oh, he used to be good, but then he like lost his power, now he's got to fight his way back up, and you can do the dope training montages, and you can do the like sweet samurai sword fight on like a roof on, you know.
I honestly would have taken the mechs too, if you at least, like, I'm willing to suspend my belief about a lot of things in shows like this if you at least like have something that is good about like the story.
Yeah,
like the story's good, the characters are good, something, and then you just have this crazy moment where you're like, dude, that was awesome.
Right.
But like there was no build up to it, so it's just like, you don't deserve to have these mechs.
Right.
Like, there's no.
Well, and
it's
again,
just convenient for the story.
Right. And again, I feel like that's a very easy plot hole to fix in terms of you just make it that Joker's been oppressing these people by making them mine stuff, and because of how horribly he's treated them for the past 2 years, he's mined enough ore or metal to build this giant robot house. Or like everyone's like, we don't know what he's making, but he's making this thing, and then it's like, oh snap, classic anime robot fight, you know, and then like that happens, but then it's like, haha, we've been stealing away generations of steel as well, so we have our own giant Batman, and like, at least then it's like corny and crazy, but there's an explanation for it. Yeah. And I wonder if that's one of the big flaws with this movie as well, is there's just, I don't need to have it make sense, because I feel like if you're one of those people who like walks into an anime and you're like, well, that doesn't logically make sense, like they want to have the ability to make technologically advanced robots in feudal Japan, like, dude, you shouldn't have even put the disc in, like, just stop. But I want an explanation for the wackiness and the craziness, and I think even if it's wacky and crazy in terms of that world's rules, buy me into the world in the world that we're in, and the rules that are functioning. But there,
as long as there's some sort of rules that I'll buy into.
Yes,
because like Hellboy, most of that is just insane. Like, there's just witches and talking pigs and
and this dude hunts them.
You're willing to buy into it because the world is the way it is, and they kind of subtly explain those things. But this was like, this just doesn't actually make any sense. Like did they, like you said, did they mine all this ore? Do they have slaves like building these things? Like,
it just happened.
Yeah, there's no payoff. It's just like, oh, and it's even like, oh, you have a giant house with giant arms that can pick up and crush his Batmobile. And I'm like, okay, I guess they're going that route. And then the end of the movie, all of a sudden they have like Voltron like things, and I'm just like, what? Good gracious.
Like, what is this?
Like, I can't believe what I'm watching right now.
And that's, again, and I think that's the other thing. They could have even done some kind of explanation that if in the beginning of the movie, for whatever reason, Joker had a mech in Gotham. It sounds so ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think that was why it was so jarring, was because, like, Joker has never had this level of technology in any Batman story. Like, he's never done this sort of thing.
Exactly.
What in the world led him to think that he was going to somehow build this technology?
I'm going to build a giant robot.
Yeah, like,
let's fight.
Why hasn't, like, he's never built a robot in Gotham before.
Right.
That could easily just destroy the city. Like, somehow he goes to feudal Japan and thinks, I'm in feudal Japan, I'm going to build a giant mech.
In 2 years. Get it done, people.
So I think it's just like the technological inconsistency irked me for some reason.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it to be, you're in feudal Japan, you're restricted by the rules of being in feudal Japan.
Correct.
Feudal Japan is just the setting. Everything else goes. You have all the technology you want and stuff. I'm like,
right.
Come on, man. Like, you could have just done this in Gotham then. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I seen a giant
bring all
mech
the samurai ninjas. Yeah, bring them all. Right. That's
bring
a good
feudal
point.
Japan to Gotham.
Right. That's what you should have done. Like, oh no, it's pulling from a different timeline, and like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like the Joker pulls like warlords from feudal Japan, and then Batman has to pull like the Bat Cult from feudal Japan or something, and now it's like this war in Gotham, and somehow Joker creates this giant mech because I don't know,
because it happens, and he needs one. Yeah, I don't really honestly have much more to say, and I feel like we'll just go in circles. But essentially, this movie could have been really, really, really cool, and I think. My gripes are not that it wasn't, it's like, yes, it wasn't what I expected, but I think that could have gone in a positive way, and I think the reason I didn't like it or enjoy it is because I didn't see anything like worth remembering. Like, there wasn't anything where I was like, oh, this was so crazy that like you just have to watch it because it's just an insane take on Batman. It's just like,
they basically
what?
took Batman and then the least interesting part about anime to me, which is just like the insane fight scenes and nonsensical, like just craziness, which I enjoy that. But I think like the reason I like Attack on Titan is because of the story and the political intrigue and the social tension and stuff that they create through the story and the characters and stuff. And then when it gets to the dope fight scenes with the Titans and different people, you're just like, oh, let's go. This has like, because it has ramifications in the world itself.
Exactly.
And then it's kind of fun. You get to sit back a little bit and enjoy like just craziness.
Right.
But this was like, they just took all the craziness and made a movie out of it. And it was like, I don't know. So if you're really into just insanity in anime, I think you might enjoy it. And I think it's maybe worth watching. But if you're a diehard Batman fan, like,
oh, dude, you're gonna have
this movie will make you hurt inside.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, and we do not say that with pleasure because I was genuinely
really
excited
for this film
because I was like, dude, this is an awesome idea. Like of all the superhero characters that could have a cool adaptation in feudal Japan, it would be Batman with all his like
trained by ninjas,
exactly, and his resourcefulness, and he doesn't use like crazy weapons or superpowers.
And he kind of has an honor code similar to like
exactly. It was like, this is perfect. It's a match made in heaven, and somehow they just. But whatever. So
it would almost been even funnier if they like transported him just to like some alternate reality where like it's not a comic book, but it's like an anime. Like, it's not feudal Japan, but it's just like
anime
like
world.
Almost just like Batman gets transposed into like a different type of animation, like
that'd be funny.
Almost like a Grant Morrison like reality bender, where like Batman's just in a different reality where like everything around him is just like super like Japanese and super anime.
And he's like, he's just what is this? I can't deal
like
with
in
this.
His animation is almost different, and he's just like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And then it's over, like you said at the beginning, it's over the top, and so I don't know.
So many things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks for bearing with us in this discussion. Let us know if you've seen the movie, and let us know what you think, because maybe we're wrong. We could be completely off base.
Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe we need to watch it again. I don't know if I could ever watch this again. I might throw it away.
So Phil, there's actually some really, really incredible deep subtext in their commentary about Japanese culture and how things worked in the feudal system, and you just weren't paying attention, and so because of that, you didn't like it, and I don't know what to tell you except that
also,
you're an idiot.
Being in feudal Japan, there was very few Japanese people in this movie.
All of them ran into their houses.
Yeah,
the first 10 minutes.
There was like no commentary on like Japanese society and feudal states, and like
not at all.
They're just. We could go on and on.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So that was a fun ride. To end on more of a positive note, if you had to put one superhero in a different timeline and to have it actually be a good movie, is always the assumption, which hero and which historical timeline?
Man, I feel like the Punisher.
Ooh.
And although he's already kind of done that in some sort of like war period, but he was in Vietnam.
Dude, I feel like, and this might be too crazy, but I feel like the Punisher in like the Revolutionary War, or like, or in like
that'd be great.
or in like Viking or something, or like some kind of really brutal culture where he's almost like not even the most brutal one, or something, or like.
Yeah, I think even maybe like a Victorian Punisher or a Victorian Daredevil. Like that sort of like
super cool.
Weird like steampunky kind of.
Yep.
Might be kind of cool.
Dude, I would super dig. I would super dig that.
Yeah.
I was thinking almost like putting Cap in like medieval, kind of like a, what would that be, like maybe like 12th century, 13th century?
Yeah, I think it's 13th century.
You know, so just like knights and armor and stuff like that. They could even maybe do like a cool like some like semi-fantasy vibe where he has to like slay a dragon that ends up being like Red Skull or something, or
that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. So there's cool things that they could do. They just need to do it well.
There's a comic called 1602 by Neil Gaiman that is basically the Avengers, but in Victorian period.
That sounds tight.
It's pretty cool. It's got like all of the heroes, like Captain and Iron Man and different things, but like Victorian style.
Nice.
So it's pretty cool.
I'll have to check that out. 1602, you said?
1602
Dope.
by Neil Gaiman.
Nice.
So
on that note, that's it. Nothing else? That's it.
Sorry for ranting in your ears for however long.
Right.
We did.
Hopefully it was semi-entertaining.
Yeah.
If you want to get the giant monkey bat mech joke, like please Google
just
it.
Skip to the last half hour of the movie.
It's incredible. Like just Google it. It's the funniest thing you'll ever see.
Oh gosh.
But until next time, which next week will be Endgame. Which
so you better get your tickets, which you probably can't at this point.
Yeah. We're just gonna say right off the bat that like there's probably gonna be about 30 seconds of spoiler free, and then we're just gonna go hog wild.
Oh yeah, we're gonna spoil the crap out of it.
We're gonna spoil the it's gonna be nuts. Yep. Russo brothers letter don't matter no more because it's gonna be in the public.
Yep.
So so until then, thanks for tuning in. You can send this podcast to your friends via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and Spotify. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Pop Culture Punks. The show Twitter is at Pop Culture Punks. Our individual Twitters are JK and Pop Culture, and I am Phil Sorensen. So if you'd like to send us your feedback or comments on Batman Ninja, if you have any, or if you would like to submit a topic idea, send them there on Twitter or post a comment on our Instagram post, or send us an email at popculturepunks@gmail.com. We've got a Redbubble and Threadless store, which shout out to whichever listener ordered
I forgot about
our
that.
most recent designs. We really appreciate it. That's super cool.
Sale number 2.
That's awesome. I will never forget.
Yep.
Until I forget. So thanks. We appreciate it. Next week is the last episode of April. That will be Avengers Endgame. Strap in, folks.
We're in the Endgame
now. Which is
it gave me chills in Infinity War when Doctor Strange says that. I'm like, he said it.
He
knew it was coming.
Easter egg. Happy Easter. Thanks
for
for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one. And
Deuces.
Until then, we bid you a fond
Batman Ninja sized
Batman Ninja Cowabunga.
Job security, but I've been dreaming about packing it all up, cause the war in me just won't relent till there's nothing left but dust. So what do you do when the walls start closing in, and everyone you love tells you it's all just in your head? And I wanna burn out in a brilliant burning blaze, don't wanna be stifled by the dry rot or the haze. Giving up, I just don't have the time to waste all my days rewriting all these lies. I'm not giving up, I just don't have the time to spend another moment living someone else's life. the head.